He was a congressman, a two-term governor of New Mexico, and the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
But there is a side of Bill Richardson that you might not know about. These days, he spends his time helping rescue Americans who are in deep trouble overseas. I sat down with Governor Richardson for a look at how he does it.
I've met with Saddam Hussein. I've met with Fidel Castro. You know, all sort of the bad guys.
He's met face-to-face with some of the world's most brutal dictators.
North Korea, Russia, Venezuela, Iran, countries that take American hostages as bargaining chips.
All governments the U.S. has strained relationships with and refuses to bargain with.
So, as a policy, the U.S. government has not done prisoner swaps because in the past, if you have prisoner swaps, the government feels that more Americans will be detained.
That's when desperate families call on the Richardson Center, based in Santa Fe, to help. His latest rescue, Marine veteran Trevor Reed. Russian authorities arrested him in 2019.
I talked to Reed and his family this morning, and they thanked me. And you know, that's worth everything to me.
Richardson spent 2 years working closely with Reed's parents. In a secret mission this last February, the governor landed in Moscow the day before Russia invaded Ukraine.
We were only there about a day and a half. And then we heard there might be an invasion. There was, so we left. I had a private plane.
In a rare move, the Biden administration agreed to a prisoner swap.
But it's always a negotiation, not just with a foreign government, but also with your U.S. government to persuade them, let's do it. Let's get this done. Let's bring this American home back to their families.
Richardson is currently trying to work out a deal with Russia to release basketball star Brittany Griner, who was arrested in February, and corporate security director Paul Whelan, who has been in prison there for 5 years.
I can't get into the details.
And in November, he came to the rescue of journalist Danny Fenster in Myanmar.
I was arrested and held in captivity for no reason.
Richardson sat down with General Min Aung Hlaing, the army general who recently seized power in a military coup.
I said to him, you know, things are not going too good for you, but I think if you want to build trust with the American people, release this guy. He didn't do anything. He said, well, he was covering, he was a journalist, he didn't treat me well. So well, that's democracy. Just let him go. It'll be good for you. And he looked at me and he said, okay.
The former UN ambassador has been hostage negotiating since the mid-90s. He says the seed was planted when he was a congressman for northern New Mexico.
If you look at northern New Mexico, I mean, it's very diverse, but there are a lot of specific interests. You got energy, you got the Native Americans, you got water issues, you got Hispanic communities, the acequias, and sometimes there are little conflicts. So I would try to resolve that. Then it got into my blood.
So how does he do it?
First, you got to show respect. Secondly, you've got to sort of get into their heads in a positive way. Third, you got to share the credit. Fourth, I think it's important that you find ways to just keep moving forward, not just instantaneous success, but build a personal trust.
Richardson has negotiated dozens of high-profile prisoner releases, but things don't always work out.
Well, yeah, I've screwed up a couple of times. Usually I've been successful.
There have been rejections like this time in 2011 when Richardson tried to cut a deal with Cuba for the release of a government contractor.
And instead of shutting up, there were all these cameras there waiting. Did you succeed? And instead of shutting up, and I went out there and I said, no, I thought we had a deal. The Cubans didn't do it. And I stupid. And so I didn't get the deal, and they kind of shut me off for several years.
President Clinton once telling the press he sent Richardson on these missions because those bad guys liked him.
Everything today is social media, is Facebook, internet. For me, it's personal relationships. looking somebody in the eye, building trust, even if they're bad people.
And he vows to keep using those personal relationships to free Americans around the world.
Richardson says he is also currently working on several other releases around the world, including 6 Americans in Venezuela.